Oh, hi, welcome to another edition of Boardroom Buddha, a weekly podcast about entrepreneurs, startups, venture capital, and what were you thinking? I'm your host, Ray Appen, and today we're talking with Tony Dietz, owner of Tag Signs. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Hey, Ray, nice to meet you.
I appreciate you
coming. Thank you much.
Yes, sir. So I just finished interviewing a gentleman named Ron Freeman who owns IT Simple, which is a technology startup. He's one of those guys who's developing the technology that's disrupting so many other industries, like mine and possibly yours. So I guess what I'd like to do is take this conversation in the direction of what it takes to compete with the technology that's out there, or possibly how is technology helping you in your business. And maybe we can get Tony to share some of his thoughts about that in general. First, though, Tony, if we can talk a little bit about your business, Tag Signs, how long you've been in the field, how you got involved in it, what is it that Tag Signs actually produces? I'd like our listeners to have a clear idea of who you are and what you do.
Well, Ray, given that we've been doing it for almost 25 years, on the technology side, I've seen a lot of changes. Back when I first was involved in it, we were still hand painting signs. And nowadays, 99% of what we do is computer generated in some way, fashion, or another. It's not always all computer, but hand skills are still involved. But a lot of it has to go through computers. I started it back when the original home building bust was starting in Alpharetta. We were involved in doing the weekend sign placement, those signs that everybody hates to see but needs to find a home. We did that for a number of years, probably about 5, 6, 7 years. And then I decided to get out of the original profession I was in and move into the sign industry. I thought I'd be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Little did I know that it was as much work as it actually is.
That's the owning your own business. I
think we all know how that is if you've been there. But it's been a ride. I mean, there are good days, bad days. We all do what we need to do to get things done. But it's still fun. There are days that you don't want to be at the office, but there's a reason you need to be there. Personally, I'm very creative, love to do things with my hands, so the fit for me works. The management is another story, but the actual creation of product is something I enjoy personally. We primarily focus on signage, mostly for the apartment industry, but really that's not it in a nutshell. We do a lot of retail work, vehicle wraps, a lot of business to business, storefronts, channel letters. Heck, we've even done your signs.
Yes, you have, and we're quite pleased with them.
And that's all we really aim for. And a lot of what we do now requires the technological skills to run the equipment. Everything from CNC equipment to lasers to large printers. That 25 years ago was hand painted in chisels.
Okay, so you're able to do a lot more quicker and probably at the same or even a higher degree of quality or creativeness.
I would think the quality level in that is it becomes more repeatable.
Okay.
When you started out years ago and you were hand painting, it really depended on the painter. Every shop had a better painter or less creative painter. Some were able to do murals. Some were only good at lettering. Now, as long as you can type, you can pretty much start making something.
Okay, very good. So you do all types of signs. You had mentioned apartments. What? I'm drawing a blank on that. Why? Apparently you do them for all sorts of businesses, but what are the signs for the apartments? I'm just.
Apartment signage, when you look at that as an industry in and of itself, There are monuments, there are interior signs, there are signs on site. You really look at it as versus say a mom and pop opening a storefront. There's a lot more involved in that package versus doing one set of channel letters or one sign at the entrance of a business.
Okay.
So obviously from a entrepreneurial standpoint, when you're trying to sell things, we obviously want to sell as much as possible, and any business would, and that would be our target market.
Okay. So, and you mentioned the car wraps. I see those. Those look fascinating. Is that something that I'm surprised there aren't more of them out there?
They have an intrinsic expense to them. They have a short shelf life. When you compare them to other forms of signage, 5 to 7 years, give or take, depending on the vehicle, depending on the conditions. It's about all they'll really last. Most signage we can say will last you 12 to 15 years if it's done right on exteriors. So vehicle wraps are there for one thing. They're advertising. And if you need to get your message across to a lot of people, especially living in Atlanta, if you have commercial vehicles that are driving around, it's a great way.
No, I love it. It's almost like a billboard. It's mobile. It's you can drive to where the audience is. What are price points on something like that? Just so the audience who's maybe there are folks out there in the audience who've contemplated wrapping their vehicles.
Well, you can.
Is there a range?
Sure. I'm sorry. You can start anywhere from something small, where you're just putting in the name of your company and a phone number for $300-400, all the way to completely wrapping the vehicle, and it could be $2,500.
Okay. And how long does it take you to do, say, a complete wrap? Is that
the actual physical part of doing a wrap is not usually more than a day. It's the design process that takes time, and having enough input from the client as to what they really want out of the project. We have a couple of very good, very well-versed designers, but without the right input from the client, all you wind up doing is going in circles.
Yeah, and once you've created it and you start putting it down, and if it's not right, I mean, does that happen sometimes?
Not really.
Okay.
Simply because we will do enough design work to make sure that the client is happy with it on the front side.
Okay.
Obviously, they'll be seeing images and design of what it looks like. Occasionally, you'll see something, I wish it was a little bit bigger. But at that point, they've signed off on it pretty much,
enough times.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have like templates that, like, if say someone has different makes and models, you have software that creates the templates that you drop the design onto, or something like that?
There are templates for vehicles. Personally, we prefer the tried and true method of taking a picture of the vehicle and taking actual hard measurements. It becomes a little bit more accurate representation of what's going to happen.
Okay.
Because most of the templates are very generic. And there's each car, each vehicle, each truck, there's so many different versions nowadays that it's much easier to actually bring the vehicle in and get real numbers.
Okay. It sounds like it's as much an art as it is as anything. I mean, I guess after you've done them for a few times, you do them better and better.
Absolutely. But then again, both of our designers have over 12 years of experience.
Okay.
And I think that's what makes the difference. That's what makes the difference for us as a business, is having the right people who are experienced in doing the project.
Okay. And you've been, so you're bringing up people in this sign business, which I guess historically or traditionally, a printer would do both printing and signs, but maybe it has become more of a specialized, the industry has become more specialized, perhaps, or are you an anomaly, or in the sense that you primarily do signs and you're not in the printing end of it?
We
So
don't.
much?
No, we don't do paper.
Okay.
Everything we do is bigger than a sheet of paper, with the exception of some of the interior work where we're doing ADA signage and interior signage. But we're always designing around a much larger scale. Generally, anything from 2 to 3 square feet up, and that can go as large as a couple hundred square feet. Say in a construction fence, and a construction fence wrap. Those kind of things, can be hundreds of square feet.
Do you like those? Those are probably pretty nice gigs.
They're easy enough. I mean, we're just doing. It's basic. I mean, what we do. It sounds basic, but we're taking images and putting them on there. There's always a message that the client wants to get across, and I think that's one of the things that we strive to understand with our clients is, what are you trying to tell your customers?
Okay.
At that point, then we can work to create that message. Part of what we do is ad agency. Part of what we do is design, and then the fabrication just kind of falls on the backside of it.
Okay.
Because everything is layout, design.
Okay. So there is what role doing work for agencies, is that a significant percentage of your business? Hadn't thought of that.
We probably do about 35% wholesale work.
Okay.
For either an ad agency, a broker, or other sign shops. What we bring to the table, not every sign shop has, and so we work with other shops to do whatever they need. To be honest.
Okay. So, when you're out looking for more business, I've known Paul, who works for you for a long time, so I vicariously have somewhat of an idea of where you go to look for new business. Typically, how do you go about it? What's your how do you approach developing new business? Is that a daily or a weekly or a sort of a constant, or how do you handle sales?
I think any small business that doesn't focus on bringing on new clientele on a daily basis is doing themselves a disservice.
Yep.
I don't think it's as much a conscious effort to go and sell people on something new. I think it's more of establish a relationship with people you already have, and they will recommend you to somebody who they feel needs your services.
Yep.
Because without a recommendation, nobody wants to sell on price. Walmart and Home Depot have that market cornered. We don't need that.
You don't want to commoditize yourself, which is exactly what getting just one common denominator, a price, and no, that's a horrible way to sell.
No, it's the whole everything we do, since everything is custom, has to be based around the relationship. There are no two signs that are alike. They might be similar, but if they're for two different clients, they're going to have something different. We can't take any one particular sign and sell it to someone else.
Right. So
everything revolves around that relationship with the client, and that's the most important issue. And that's the sales process.
That's the baseline or the foundation from which one moves forward. I found that most of our business is built on relationships, and that's probably one of the things that I enjoy most about my business, newspapers, is I get exposed to lots of different businesses, and I get to see I get to see good ones, I get to see bad ones. I meet people who are doing it right and people who are doing it wrong, and for me, no day is the same. I enjoy the variety and I learn stuff every day.
I think if you're not learning, you're just going backwards.
Yeah.
You have to learn, whether it's something new about your craft, something new about one of your clients. For us, we can learn about new products, new technology, and all of those come into play. How you bring that to your customers is what makes you valuable to them.
So yeah, if you stay current, then your customers stay current.
Exactly.
Okay, so I've got one for you. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, and it's sort of a setup question, so I'll warn you in advance.
That's fine.
Is who do you feel really you compete with? And I'm not really thinking about necessarily other companies that make signs, but other companies that are in the marketing business, are in the display marketing business. And I was specifically thinking about, if I'm in the sign business, do I care, or do I ever lose any sleep about these digital billboards? I know I do a little bit.
In regards to the billboards, I think they offer the end user a more effective use of their money. I think it brings advertising to a little bit more targeted market for their needs. Whereas in the past, you'd buy a billboard and it would be a couple of $1,000s a month, and it's one location.
And one message.
Now with the digital billboards, you can be on as much or as little as you like. I think it tailors the marketing to your budget. So in that regards, I think they might be a plus for the business owner. In a way, they're actually a little bit more environmentally friendly.
Okay, a little bit greener.
They are, because there's less, an old school billboard was either paper and paste and printing, or 10 years ago it was putting a banner on the billboard, a huge use of, vinyl and plastics and things of that nature. Now, as long as the billboard's functional and it's LED, power usage is low, light emissions are controlled, and the message can change. So once it's up, it's up. But as far as competing with other sign shops, I don't really compete with other shops. I think the real competition is with yourself. And that competition is always challenging yourself, your staff, to do better on a daily basis. Whether it's a little sign, a big sign for us, but every time we do something to either find a more cost-effective way of making it, or a faster way, or just to make it better. I mean, because since we never make anything that's identical, all we can base our skill set on is past experience. So we're always striving to try to make something, we did it like this, but now we can try it like another way, but we can make it better. And that's the goal.
In my business, there's a saying that's been around for a long time: you're only as good as your last edition. And I think that's sort of similar to what you're just describing. Is every sign is different, and you have the opportunity to keep looking for ways to make it better, because it's not cookie cutter
Exactly.
by and large. I was meeting with a client recently, and what you've been describing as how you go about doing business is how we here at our company try to do as well. And especially in this age of technology where everything is being disrupted, and there always seems to be a better, cheaper, faster option. I think maybe one of the better defenses against all of that is the relationship with your customer, and always putting your customer's best interest ahead of your best interest. Ran across a quote recently. It was something Bernie Marcus said from Home Depot, and he said I understood that he used to walk around at the managers' meetings, and he would ask the managers, when does customer service start? And they'd all, give their guesses. And the answer, according to Bernie, was customer service starts the instant the customer realizes that you care. And I thought that was pretty huge.
I think most customers would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, when you care, when you don't treat them like they're an inconvenience or that they're bothering you, they think they're being treated special, in some sort of special way. So, we've already talked about sort of your business model, what you do to compete, and how you grow. One of the things I've learned from Paul is I've really been surprised at the scope of what you all make signs for. I guess unless you're in the business, you really don't realize. I mean, he talks a lot about, we have lunch at Chick-fil-A sometimes, and he talks a lot about neighborhoods and subdivisions. And I mean, that seems to be a large category business, is real estate related.
Property management would be, yes. And that can be both from a residential side, being neighborhoods and subdivisions, to being the multifamily side, because not all apartments are owned or managed by their owners. They're outside firms that will come in and handle the leasing management and also the property upkeep, to a commercial sense where you have some office parks that are outside managed. And in each case, there are specific needs. On a commercial office park, there might be a standard type of sign that the association or the property manager wants to use. That can be accomplished. Apartments we've discussed, and that could be exactly what the particular owner or management company wants. Residential, we deal with a lot of HOA management firms, both in upkeep to handle their existing signage. We have a lot of neighborhoods here in Atlanta that are getting into that 25, 30-year-old range. There are a lot of signs that are failing at this point. Yeah, because cedar is only good for an X amount of years, and then it's gone. So there's a lot of issues in that. Street sign upgrades, because what's available now is not what was available 20 years ago. We have a lot of customers coming in and doing nicer upgrades on the street signs, cast aluminum, fancy bases, things that are going to last them forever, but their existing signs are gone. So, we see a lot of that. It's an interesting market, because you're not really selling to one person in that regard. You're selling to a board. So we do a lot of proposals that include a few different options that the boards will have time to decide and look at. And then once they review it and decide what they want to do, we put some numbers on paper to give them what they want.
Okay. So you can offer a pretty wide range of a company that needs a sign has a pretty wide range of, you can spend almost as much as you want to.
Top end, there's no limit. There's no limit to cost. It really depends on imagination. We cover really, when it comes from signage, from anything from a simple yard sign up to monument signs for either an entry to a commercial business or to an apartment, that can be $30,000, $40,000.
Wow. What? Yeah, I was going to say, which leads me to, what are some of a few of the more memorable signs that you all have worked on that you come to mind?
I think one of the funniest ones that we had is we had a client, and this is going back a number of years ago, for a job that was somewhere in Midtown Atlanta, and it was a piece of slate that was probably 4 feet by 6 feet. And I think that one piece of slate weighed 500 pounds. And the challenge to the job was it could not be bolted to the wall. It had to be suspended from the ceiling. It was an old building that had historic brick, and we had to come up with a way to mount the sign off the ceiling. It was quite a challenge.
Steel cables, I'm guessing?
And yes. A number of steel cables, a stainless steel frame. And about 7 guys to put it up.
Wow.
Probably one of the more interesting pieces.
Okay. All right. So what are you looking at for the? Oh, I meant to ask you. How about government business? There's. Is that a significant consumer of signs? I mean, do you go after cities or I don't know what I'm trying to say. Is it government or municipalities?
I think there are. I mean, there are some, especially on the north side of town right now. We know that Milton and Alpharetta have undergone a bunch of new buildings for their government facilities. Johns Creek is building a new facility. It's a simple project. I mean, it's just like any other job. We bid them out and go from there. I mean, we get a few, we don't get some. It's no different. It's just a bid process.
So how competitive? And I know you've already told me that you sort of don't compete, but you primarily compete against yourself. And I get that, but how competitive is your business? To use maybe as a baseline, I know the printing business, paper is brutal. It's like, who in their right mind would want to get into that business? But on that kind of a scale, how competitive is your business?
On a scale of 1 to 10, we try to be a 5. As a business owner, I look at it in a sense that you truly never want to be the lowest bidder, and you truly never want to be the highest bidder. I think if you can provide a product that's comparable to an 8 or a 9 for a price of a 5,
okay,
I think that's where you're giving the customer the kind of service that they need.
Okay, fair enough. So, and what brought you into this business? I needed a
part-time job.
Okay.
I was a chef, and somehow wound up picking up a part-time job with a gentleman who managed a company that put up the weekend directionals. And I worked Friday nights and Sunday nights, made a few extra bucks, and about a year and a half later, somebody approached me, and we started doing it on our own. Like 6 years later, we were doing like 60 subdivisions, putting up 5,000 signs a weekend,
Holy
and had
cow.
something like 25 guys doing it. And it was just an amazing transition. And it was about at that point that we opened up our first location. And we were trying to muddle through opening up a sign shop and dealing with all of that. And somehow it all managed to work. We were doing a lot of silk screen printing back then of yard signs and things of that nature. And we just basically always strive to create a new product and get into the other aspects of the industry that we weren't in. And after 25 years, it's just grown to where we are now. I mean, we've been in our current location for 20 years and don't plan on going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, no, it's. I think it's great when you build a solid client base and they give you the referrals and such as that. So, part of my audience, part of the reason we do this podcast is to try to help people process what their options are that are considering going into business. What, if any, advice or words of wisdom can you share with Boardroom Buddha listeners about starting your own business? Something to avoid, something to do?
Always use a payroll company.
Okay, that's a great start.
You never want to be involved in that aspect of your business. Paying our friends at the government is always paramount in getting things done correctly. Other than that, I think the biggest thing I always tell people is don't quit and prepare to work hard, because you're going to put in way more hours than you thought you were going to put in.
Yep.
And there are going to be risks that you're going to take. And it's hard to decipher when they're going to happen, but you have to have a little bit of a risk taker in you.
Sure you do.
Because none of this is safe. We can come in tomorrow and, as in the case of like the weekend directionals, we had a lot back years ago. There was a lot of kickback from the governments and from the residents. And a lot of that business went away for a while. So there are sometimes things that are out of your control in business. And so you kind of have to prepare for that, or be able to at least roll with the punches.
Okay. No, I think that's good advice. You see cycles. You got to, you ride the good ones up, and you got to be prepared to ride the not so good ones down, and know that tomorrow's another day.
Exactly.
So I guess as one last question for you, Tony, what should the listeners, what can you share about your signs that you're maybe something you're particularly excited about, or there's new technology that you have on hand right now that is really you're very proud of, or I guess I'm saying is, what give us something that maybe our listeners aren't aware of, or maybe could take advantage of. Can you think of anything in particular that you like to sell or you can sell that might be not so well known?
Not so well known. Well, I think when you discuss the signage issue, I think a lot of people think of just something as simple as what they see on the street, or they see a sign out in front of a business, or a real estate sign. That's, I think, what first comes to people's minds. But I think what they don't realize is you walk into an office and the company has a logo on the wall, or what looks like wallpaper is not really wallpaper. It's a big printed scene on the wall. Those are all part of the signage industry. It's not just about something that portrays a message, but it's also some things that you do that are imagery. And interior designers and people who are in that field come to us and have us do either wallpaper or just graphics.
Okay.
They might not say anything, but help them convey what they're trying to do with whatever particular space it is.
That's a great example. I mean, it conveys a message or a feeling, or it's part of a design. It's a component of.
It's a design element.
Design. Sure, it is. Okay. Well, Tony owns and runs Tag Signs. You can contact Tony at tagsigns.com.
Correct.
Phone number's there. And I do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with us information about the sign business and the ins and out of it. And I'll hope to see you out there selling lots of signs.
Thank you very much, Ray. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.